Hello guys, welcome to another video regarding linked list. So today we're gonna discuss about displaying a linked list, how to display a linked list. So this video will be a short one because there is nothing in detail of displaying a linked list. It's very easy. In my last video I discussed about how to create a linked list, so I would prefer that you should first see that video in order to connect with this video, because if you don't know how to create a linked list, then displaying a linked list will be of no use to you. So okay, let us start with this. I will write the code and I will explain every terms that why I use this and that. Alright, okay, so let's start. So now up to this I wrote the code of how to create a linked list, and this is the main function, as I've told in my previous video, that it will just store all the functions that I want my linked list to do. Till now it has only one statement of switch case, which is just create. We'll move on to topics, more topics, and this list will be I will add more stuffs in this list. So now another stuff we have to add, that is press 2 to display. Okay, let's start. Let me write the code. So here I have written the switch case statement of displaying the list, and here I have to write the prototype of this function. So here I have written this void display function prototype. I've written this value as void because we don't have to return any value while displaying the linked list. In the previous case, when you had to create a linked list, we had to set the return type as node, because this create function was returning this value head, right? And head is a node type variable, like we declared it as. So that's why we had to initiate this create function as node, but we don't have to do anything like that for display function. Just a void return type will be enough. So let's now write the code, and I think up to this things are clear. Why I have written just on a display, and here why I have written head, because this function was returning this head value, right? So this head value must be stored in some variable, so, and that variable should be of node type, like this return type is. So I have written here as head is equals to create. So that's it. It's very simple, and I hope things are clear up to that how I created this linked list. If not, then you should check my last video, that is 0.5. So before watching this video, I would prefer that you should first go through how to create a linked list, because you won't be able to connect if you haven't seen that. So let's move on to, let's write the function. Now what I did here, I just took a pointer type variable, that is temp, and I've initiated that variable as null, and this variable is of node type. So what is this thing? That is, this is a pointer. I have initiated the value of pointer as null because I don't want my pointer to store any kind of garbage value which would hamper my code. So I've just initiated for keeping it in a safe side, so as null. So next statement is if head equals to null. So it is checking whether head is equals to null. If a list is active, means if a list is containing any nodes, then obviously head is not equals to null, right? I explained everything in my last video. So if a list has some values, then head cannot be null. Head must be pointing to the first node of the list, right? So if head is equals to null, that means the list is empty. the list doesn't contain any kind of values. So I have written here that if head equals to null, then print list is empty. And obviously I declared a prototype in my last video where node head equals to null. That was the initial declaration of head, that if there is no value inside head will point towards null. Right, up to this I think the things are clear. So now you have to write the else statement. What I have done here, I've taken this else statement. It's a simple if else declaration. So here what I have done, that if head is equals to null, then the list is empty. It will print that the list is empty. But if not, then I have taken this temp variable which was initiated by null. Now I have told this temp variable that if head is not equals to null, point to that node where head is pointing. That's why I have written here this temp equals to head. Let me explain by drawing the blocks. Now let us assume that this whole thing is a linked list, is that linked list that we have created from our last function. Let us assume that this is the linked list that we have created, and obviously I have told that head will always point towards the first node like we did while creating. So head is obviously pointing towards the first node. And what I am doing is, when head is not equals to null, right? In this case head is not equals to null because head is pointing towards the first node. So we have to go to the else statement. Else temp equals to head. Now what is happening? Temp is another pointer of node type that I have declared here as null. So what is happening? If head not equals to null, like this condition is not satisfying, then I am taking this temp variable and putting it right over this thing where head is pointing, right over that node where head is pointing. Head is obviously pointing towards the first node, right? So temp will also start pointing towards the first node like this. So like this, temp will also start pointing towards the first node, towards the node where head is pointing. Actually, it can be first node, it can be second node, wherever it wants, but head in case of linked list, temp head always points towards this first node, so temp will also start pointing towards the first node. So up to this things are clear, right? Up to this the code is doing this stuff. So what's next? Next we have to run a while loop. So what I have done here, I've taken a while loop. Now what is the condition of this while loop? This condition is checking that while temp is not equals to null, printf this %d, which will print as integer values, temp data, means that run the loop unless temp is not equals to null. Like the loop will run unless until that point when temp will become null. Like when temp will store any value, the loop will run, and if when temp will start storing null value, the temp will stop, like the loop will stop actually. So what is happening? Temp is not equals to run null, printf the value of data stored inside temp, and temp is equals to temp.add. So what is happening here? So let me try run the code, right? Temp is now storing this the node where head is stored, right? Temp is now pointing towards that node where head is pointing, like the first node actually. So what's next? While temp is not equals to null, is temp null now? Obviously no, because it is pointing towards the first node, right? And it is storing the value of the first node, right? So temp is obviously not null. So what is happening? Printf %d temp.data. So if I consider these values right here, let me take it. So if I consider the values of these, the data types of this particular nodes be 5, 6 and 7. If I assume that temp is now storing the value of 5. So what is happening? While temp is not equals to null, temp is obviously not null now. So printf %d temp.data. So what is the data part of temp now? And in this case, the data part of temp now is equals to the data part of head, right? Like head is pointing towards this node, so the data part of head will be storing the value of 5 and the address part will store the address of this 6 node, right? Similarly, temp is also now pointing towards the first node, so the data part of temp will store the value of 5 and also the address of 6 like the head. So what I have done, I am printing the data part of temp. So what is the data part of temp? It's obviously 5, right? I am printing the data part of temp with a slight arrow sign for style. Like it's not needed actually, like I just did it to represent it like a linked list. So just like this, this is not actually needed. You can write it simply 5 also, so not needed. So this was the first iteration, right? Temp, the data of this temp part is printed. Now what next? The next statement is temp is equals to temp.add. Now what is temp.add here? Temp.add is obviously the 6, because temp.add, like the address part of temp is storing the address part of 6, like the storing the address of 6. So what is the statement actually? Temp is equals to temp.add. Now by this statement, temp will start pointing to the node of 6. Why 6? Because temp.add is storing the address part of 6, right? Now temp is equals to temp.add means that temp will now start pointing towards that address. Now if I consider these are the addresses of the nodes. So temp.add is now storing 1002, right? Like this part is storing 1002 actually. This part is storing 1003 of the address of 7. And obviously as 7 is the last node, the address part of 7 will store the null value. So what is happening here? Temp is equals to temp.add. That means now temp will point to that node now temp will point to that address which it is storing. Like now temp is storing 1002, right? Now temp is equal to temp.add means it will now start pointing towards 1002, or more specifically the address that which is storing. Now temp is storing 1002 and 1002 is the address of 6. So what is happening? Temp is now pointing towards 6 like this. Just like this. Temp is equals to temp.add means it will start pointing towards that address which it is storing. It is obviously storing the address of 6, so now it is pointing towards 6. That this statement only means that, right? So now the loop will again run. Is temp null now? Obviously no, because it is pointing towards 6. It is storing the value 6 and the address part is storing the address of 7, right? So temp is obviously not null. Though now the value of temp has changed from that of the value of head, because it is not pointing towards the first node now, it is pointing towards the second node. So but temp is obviously not null. So what is happening? Again it is printing the value of temp.data. Now what is the data part of temp? The data part of temp is now 6, so it will store 6. Let me write it. So just like this, temp will now print, this print statement will now print 6. Now what is again happening? Temp is equals to temp.add. Now in this case, temp.add is storing the address of 6. So what I'm telling it that you now point to that address which you are storing. So what it is now doing is it will now start pointing towards the address which it is storing. So it is storing 1003, right, because it is the address of 7. So we have to rub it up and temp will start pointing towards 7. Just like this, temp is now pointing towards 7. Now what is happening? Again it is checking, while temp not equals to null. Is temp null now? Obviously again no, because it is again storing the value of 7 in its data part, and the address is now storing null because at 7 is the last node. So what is it again doing? Is again printing the data part of temp. So what is the data part of temp now? It is 7. That's right. So just like this, now it will print 7. So what is happening now? The next statement is temp equals to temp.add. Now what is temp.add now? Temp.add is now null, right? So by this statement, what will temp point to now? Temp will point to null. By this statement now, because the address part of 7 was null as it was the last node, so now by this statement temp should point towards the address the node was storing, right? So temp was storing null. So now by this statement temp will start pointing towards null. So now temp will have to store null value, right? Again the loop runs while temp not equals to null. Is temp null now? Obviously yes, temp is obviously null now. So the loop breaks, right? So this was the whole code of displaying. It was the simplest code ever. So I hope you guys got it, and please practice these things in your computer, else things won't work right away. So on the next video onwards, we'll move on to more problems, and there are many problems left in linked list. So I'll move on to those stuffs then. Okay, things were clear till now. If any queries, you can comment down below, and please like, share and subscribe. You can also mail us. We have our mail ID written down there. So alright, I hope you guys like this video, and please like, share and subscribe more and more, and share it. We need your support obviously. So alright, let's end the video right now. It was a very short one, I know, but I think things were clear. So alright, have a nice day.